This giant black hole that you're looking at is the back side of my circle. I went ahead and primed this with some black gesso because I think most of the outside of the piece is going to be dark, and the back side really doesn't matter, and I have black gesso that needs to be used up. So there it is. And it's a little uneven. I might come back and do another coat, but not today. So here's the front of my piece, and it's gonna get primed with, you guessed it, white gesso. Why do we apply gesso to things that we're going to paint with acrylics? Because gesso is designed as a primer for acrylic paints. Acrylic gesso, acrylic paints. And it creates a paintable ground for the piece. It creates a surface that is receptive to the acrylics rather than the bare wood that I started off with, or the wood that's been sealed with matte medium, which in my experience, surfaces that are just primed with matte medium, the paint tends to slide on the surface a little bit rather than sit where you put it. So this just creates a surface that is receptive to acrylics. And I'm doing a thin coat now, and I'll probably do a second coat in a bit after this dries, going with the grain. And I'm doing this with a sponge to avoid brush marks as much as possible. Because after sanding this surface smooth, I really don't want to make it textural by adding brush marks. So, and then once this is dry, I'll come back in and do another thin coat, just enough to make my background white rather than the color of the pine. And I'm doing that because I'm using craft acrylics rather than artist acrylics to paint this. They are not always completely opaque, so I don't really want the color of the wood to influence the color of my paint. So gesso prevents that. White gesso prevents that. Okay, I'm just gonna let that sit and dry. So here's my round with 2 coats of gesso on it. The second coat is still a little wet, but most of the wood tone has been knocked back to white. So now I feel like it's probably ready for paint. There's one section right here that I think might need a little more gesso, but I'm gonna wait and let it dry before I decide to do any more. And I've drooled a little bit of gesso, a little bit of white gesso over the side onto my black. That's okay. I'll clean it up after I'm done painting. So now this is ready for me to apply my design, which I'll talk about in the next video.